She wasn't afraid of marriage. She was afraid of not knowing why. People kept asking her the same question, when are you getting married? What bothered her wasn't the question itself, it was the silence around everything else. No one asked what kind of life she wanted. No one asked what marriage meant to her. No one asked why this decision mattered. Just when. And every time she smiled and stayed quiet, the doubt inside her grew stronger. Because she wasn't confused about marriage. She was confused about choosing something lifelong without understanding its purpose. That thought stayed with her. From the outside, her life looked stable. A career she had built patiently. Responsibilities she handled without complaint. Independence she earned slowly. She knew how to commit. She committed every single day to work, to growth, to discipline. So when people said she was afraid of commitment, it didn't feel true. What felt true was something deeper. She didn't want to walk into a life just because everyone else was walking. One evening, scrolling through her phone, she noticed how fast the world around her was moving. Engagement photos, wedding videos, smiling faces, everything looked certain, everything looked decided. But she also thought about the conversations that never appeared online. Friends who smiled in photos but spoke differently in private. Marriages that looked fine from the outside but felt heavy when spoken about honestly. People stayed not because they were fulfilled, but because leaving felt harder than enduring, and she realized something quietly disturbing. No one was questioning the choice itself. They were only executing a timeline. If marriage is such an important step, she thought, why does no one talk about its purpose? That question followed her everywhere. One Sunday at a cousin's wedding, she sat quietly watching the ceremony. The bride looked perfect. The smile was wide. The rituals flowed smoothly. Everyone clapped. Everyone recorded. Later in the restroom, she heard crying. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears. Someone asked the bride if she was okay. The bride laughed softly and said, "Cold feet. Everyone gets them." No one asked why. Everyone smiled and said, "It will pass." As if uncertainty was something to ignore, not understand. That moment stayed with her longer than the ceremony itself. A few days later, a close friend called. The wedding date was fixed. Happiness filled the conversation, mixed with nervous laughter. Before hanging up, the friend said casually, "You're next, right?" She smiled. But that night, lying awake, clarity arrived. She wasn't afraid of marriage. She was afraid of entering something permanent without understanding herself first. She saw two paths clearly. One was easy, follow the timeline, trust that clarity would come later. The other was uncomfortable. Pause, question, think, even if it made others uneasy. She chose the second. Quietly. She began observing marriages around her. Not with judgment, but with attention. Couples who lived together but felt emotionally distant. People who followed roles perfectly but looked tired inside. Everyone said, "This is normal." But she kept asking herself, if this is normal, why does it feel so heavy for so many? Pressure slowly increased. Family said she was overthinking. Friends said she was complicating life. Society whispered that she was late. For a moment, she doubted herself. Am I scared? Am I selfish? Is something wrong with me? Then she looked at her own life again. She showed up when things were hard. She stayed consistent when motivation disappeared. She built stability without shortcuts. She wasn't afraid of commitment. She was afraid of losing herself in a choice she didn't understand. Marriage, she realized, was often treated like an answer. But answers only work when you know the question. So she started asking better ones. What kind of life do I want to build? What kind of partnership supports that life? What am I willing to grow together with someone? And what am I not willing to lose about myself? These questions didn't make her weak. They made her honest, and honesty can feel lonely. There were days silence felt loud, days waiting felt risky, days she wondered if clarity would ever come. But she noticed something important. Many people rushed into marriage to escape loneliness and ended up feeling lonelier inside it. Fear didn't disappear after marriage, it only changed its shape. Avoiding fear didn't bring peace. Understanding it did. One quiet evening, the truth settled gently. Marriage is not an answer. Marriage is a multiplier. If you know who you are, it multiplies clarity. If you don't, it multiplies confusion. That realization softened everything. She didn't avoid marriage. She simply stopped treating it like a deadline and started treating it like a choice. When people asked when she was getting married, she could finally answer differently. When I find someone I want to multiply my clarity with, not someone I need to escape my loneliness with. She stopped rushing, stopped explaining herself, stopped comparing timelines. Marriage was no longer a finish line, it became a conscious decision. She understood something simple and strong. Marriage doesn't require fearlessness, it requires awareness. Her life didn't change overnight, but something inside her became still. She wasn't late, she wasn't broken, she wasn't difficult. She was simply choosing her life with clarity instead of pressure. Some journeys don't end with weddings, some end with understanding. And sometimes understanding is the bravest commitment of all, not because it gives answers about marriage, but because it gives answers about yourself. Thanks for watching.